So good to see you. It's been a night, hey? It's so good to be with you here on the territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. This has been a very, very hard-fought campaign, and we knew that every vote would matter, and that has certainly been the case. And it looks like we're going to have to wait just a little bit longer. Now, we don't know what the final count's going to be in the province, but what we do know is that there was a clear majority for the progressive values that are. And I take a lot of comfort from that. There was also.
Okay, we're going to stop it there and start the show, Brent.
Sounds great. Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to PWD Allies podcast. My name is Brent Frain, and I'm the host. I hope today that you're enjoying the hangover, I guess we call it, of the BC election. What an election that was. But we don't know who the government is, Neil. We do not know who the government will be until approximately October 28th. So we're going to be finding out who's going to either prop up the government, or is it going to be a minority government, or is it going to be a majority government? Is it going to be BC-NDP as a minority, or are they going to have a majority, or is it going to be John Rustad with the BC Conservatives? Maybe as a majority or a minority. Either case, is it going to be the BC Greens again? I mean, deja vu.
Yeah.
Right? 2017 again, where the BC Greens was the maker of make or break to hold up the government as a CASA agreement with the BC NDP, or are they going to do a CASA agreement with the BC Conservatives? Or, better yet, maybe the BC Greens may not even want to sign a CASA agreement with either party. They may say, you know what, I'm done with this. And when I say they're done with it, they may not want to make an agreement. They may, no actual CASA agreement. They may work with them, which I'm sure will.
And again, when we say CASA, it's Confidence and Supply Agreement.
Yeah.
That was first done in 2017. And we should say that 2017 was the last, let's say, legitimate election, because really we can say when they had the election in 2020, it was kind of like, it was a COVID election. It almost didn't count as a proper election, right?
Yeah, that was a weird election.
It was a weird election, so it almost doesn't count. So if you think about it, we've had two elections in a row, really, 2017 and this one, where it's been so tight, and it's basically a repeat of 2017, where now the BC Greens hold the balance of power. Before we get too far into the show, though, Brent, we wanted to play a few highlights of all the leaders. So I'm going to scrub ahead to 350 here, and we'll play that.
Sure.
Right about here.
Agree on these things. We need to support people with the costs of daily life. We need to make life more affordable for British Columbians. And we need to make communities safe for everybody. And we will do these things. And I also tonight spoke with Sonia Furstenau. And I congratulated her on running a strong campaign, on her contributions to this province in the 2017 Parliament. And since then, she ran a strong and principled campaign, and I'm grateful for that. There are many values that we share in common with the Green Party, and I am committed to working with them on our common goals.
Okay, so right about there, we can stop right about there. He's talking about with Sonia Furstenau.
Okay.
But we can stop here because like you and I kind of had a discussion yesterday when we were talking about doing this kind of aftermath show. And one of the things that you and I talked about is, a lot of the political pundits are saying there's no way, there's a snowball's chance in hell that the BC Greens are going to team up with the BC Conservatives. And, maybe that's true, except here's where it gets interesting, is that, Sonia Furstenau was around at the time when they did the first confidence and supply agreement, right? That was back in 2017 with Andrew Weaver. And, it was entered in good faith, and John kept up that for what was it, like, it wasn't quite 2 years, right? It was like a year and a half or so. It was somewhere around a year and a half to 2 years, something like that. And then, like we've said before, is that he was listening to his yes man, meaning John Horgan, started listening to his yes man saying, John, you got to take advantage of all the power you have now, and now's the time to throw the BC Greens under the bus so that you can call another election and get all the power now.
That was in 2020, right? Yeah,
2020 when they called the election again. So basically it was maybe a little over 2 years where they basically flushed the confidence and supply agreement, and he basically did throw John Horgan again. We'll say he threw Sonia Furstenau and Andrew Weaver under the bus, and I think Sonia Furstenau remembers that. And it was only even just a week ago or so, remember, that EB himself said, please don't vote for BC Greens.
Right,
This is David Eby now. So flash forward to 2024, 1 week ago, where David Eby said, please don't vote for the BC Greens because if you vote for BC Greens, you're going to split the vote. Yeah, so there you go. That's two opportunities where Sonia Furstenau, she knows what's going on. Like, she's not stupid. So here's 2 times now where the NDP back in 2020 and now, about a week ago, where she's been thrown under the bus, her party's been thrown under the bus by the NDP party. So maybe she's not going to be so willing to partner up with them anymore, right?
Yeah, well, here's another scenario too that I was thinking about is when you got the newly elected Green MLAs into the BC legislature. They just don't have the experience yet, and to get that experience and I'm sure that they're going to do a wonderful job. It's going to be interesting seeing all new faces in the BC legislature from all different parties. And having them all work together. And I think that's what the theme is about, is that what people showed in the electorate, as we call it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really what they showed in the polls, that people wanted change. They were not happy. They were pissed off. I mean, I'm in my community around here, and all I kept hearing is that they were priced out. Affordability. They were losing jobs. I mean, there's one guy, I don't know how he's making it by now, but he had 4 jobs. He's now down to 1 job. He had to now move in with some other people because he lost his place. He can't afford the high rent. People are having to sacrifice from all angles. Businesses shutting down. I mean, crime levels, on the rise. I've never seen it so bad in Victoria, and I'm sure other communities around BC are not weathering too well. I mean, we have 7-Elevens shutting down because of crime. What is
the poverty and crime now? You compare that to 7 years ago, and it's a big difference. I mean, I've been seeing a lot on social media, and like I've said for the longest time now, I haven't been on Twitter. But even if you're not on Twitter, you still can't help but see some social media posts. And there's lots of people now. It's kind of funny, but not where they call the NDP what is it? Needles, Drugs, and Poverty Party now. The Needles, Drugs, and Poverty Party, and unfortunately, I mean, that's not too far off the mark. I mean, I hate to say it, but if you look at the rise in drugs, and you look at the rise in poverty, it's huge.
It is huge.
And I mean, I don't want to speak lightly of our drug problem because I mean we're talking about people's lives here, right? So I don't want to speak light of it.
Yeah.
So when you have people saying, you know, the NDP is the Needles, Drugs, and Poverty Party, it seems like people are making light of it, making a joke of it. But so I don't want to do that. But I just thought it was important to mention because you know, the fact of the matter is that poverty really has risen a lot in the last 7 years. It really, really has.
It's ballooned. I mean, there's so many reasons of why that's happening. I mean, I'm not going to list down all the crises that we have, as people have shown and when they voted, how it affects their lives. But just in general, I mean, we got a housing crisis, we got affordability crisis. We have, I mean, businesses that they can't afford to stay in business because of, number one, either poverty, street disorder, vandalism, property taxes. I mean, you name it. I mean, I've seen there's small businesses that have been around for 30, 40 years in the community, and they just can't afford to even stay in business. I mean, they got the insurance claims. I mean, you go to an insurance adjuster and they say, well, I mean, how many times has your business been broken into? Well, 4 times in one day. Well, okay, that's kind of going overboard. Yeah. And reality is, what stems from the problem is poverty. And there's just a lot of other mental health.
Well, and we've already said that you know, that there are direct government policies that the government does that have direct links to the drugs and poverty, and one of those is that the NDP legalized drug possession, right?
Right.
And then I mean, how long did they try that for? It was almost 2 years. Where they're like, let's try this legalizing drug bit.
Yeah, the pilot project.
And see how that goes. Well, that was a spectacular failure, right? And it was only a little while ago. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that finally David Eby did an about face and go, well, maybe that was a mistake. you know, maybe that was a mistake after almost 2 years of that. You know.
Well, you know, in the United States and the state of Oregon, they had told the government, you might want to just stop this pilot project. It's not working for us. And so if it's not working for us, it's probably not going to do too well in British Columbia. They didn't listen, right, at the time. They just kept on going. Then they realized, this is not working. So let's backtrack it. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? It's like if the Conservatives get in, which some people may want them in, some people may not want them in. That's, I guess, their electoral choice. But if the NDP gets in, I mean, what I'm really concerned is which government's going to stay on track of actually focusing on and actually, basically putting an end to the misery of society in general, of having to adapt to what we're seeing on the streets and the disorder. And I mean, I don't have the actual right answer to it. Of course, government always says they have the answer to all of these things to solve the problem. I mean, they have a ministry called Mental Health and Addictions, right, under the BC NDP. Yeah. Now, like we say, then we got the social development and poverty reduction. So, and then we got the housing. Everything's all interrelated. Like all the ministries, they need to communicate together and find a solution. And then they pass it on to the municipalities. Well, the municipalities can only deal with so much. Yeah. Right. And they say, well, we don't have housing. It's up to the provincial or it's up to the federal government to give us transfer payments to the to government. So, I see the whole domino effect, and it's really like the house of cards. And it's just boom, boom, boom. They're all coming.
Yeah, and Brent, because I'm such an awesome producer, and we're doing everything kind of on the fly, I've realized that I've kind of left David Eby in pause mode here.
Oh.
And we're still in small screen, small window on the side, and so that's what people have been watching.
We'll get back to you, David, right away.
Yeah.
Here.
So it's like I said, it's because I'm such an awesome producer that I've done this. But so I just wanted to go to finish off with David's clip because we wanted to scrub to the last thing that he says.
Okay.
And it's 7:40, so let's scrub ahead to that.
In strong and safe communities with a strong economy, leading the way not just in Canada but in North America to a clean economy, ensuring that we're doing it in partnership with Indigenous people. We're fighting hate and racism and division. Thank you, my friends. We couldn't have done it without you. And
Thank you, my friends. Thank you, my friends. We couldn't have done it without you. I hate when they do that. Thank you, my friends. Okay, now we're full screen, and we will play the other leaders in a bit. I just have to do my setting up everything for the other videos.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know where you want to. It's just going to be very interesting, right? Because let's remember again, like. John Horgan was the premier in 2017, and then like we said, they had the confidence and supply agreement and from the BC Greens, and that kind of kept him in power. If it wasn't for the Greens, it would have been the BC Liberals, because they had actually one more seat and the popular vote. So it probably should have been the BC Liberals. And then, so it seemed like it was going really well. I've always said on record that to me it felt like that was the best that BC legislature had ever ran was that back then for about the 2 years or so. And then, like I said, like John listened to his yes men, and his yes men said, come on, John, take advantage of all the power you have now and call another election. And now's the time to throw the BC Greens under the bus. Mm-hmm. And, and so now we're at 2024, but let's go back a little bit, because when John Horgan stepped down, that was when, they had that leadership convention, right?
Yeah.
And let's see, I have the note here. I always get her name wrong. It's Angeli Apadura, right?
Right. Yes.
She was another woman that was going to compete for the leadership of the. She was going to compete for the leadership for the NDP, and so that was in 2022. But Eby and company decided to disqualify her for. They said she was tampering with the process of. She was trying to secure people what do you want to call it, like sponsorships and
memberships
memberships and Eby and the top brass was saying that she was not doing it above board, and of course she says everything was above board. But I think what was happening behind the scenes is, Eby and company said, well, she's making a power play here, and we can't have that. She's making me look bad. That's what honestly I think happened, is that she was probably making David Eby look bad, and she was actually splitting the party from within, causing a really serious division of people and policy from within the party, right?
Yeah, I remember back when we had the Twitter space going for the show on there, and I know one of her campaign promises back then was for people with disabilities. She wanted to raise the rates, and that was in her platform. So looking at 2024 campaign of what was actually in David Eby's platform for the BC NDP, there was no indication of raising PWD rates, but only a reference of next July of 2025 of the $200 for the Canada Disability Benefit that won't go to, with the way it's designed right now, it's not even going to go to hardly anyone. So that's just a riddle.
But what I wanted to get back to is this whole back in 2022 where basically EB and company threw this Angeli Appadura under the bus and basically said she's doing something illegal and we got to disqualify her. So it kind of turned out like, you know how they have it now where you can graduate from kindergarten, like it's a big deal, or you have things like a participation badge.
Yeah.
I mean it's almost like that where EB can say, "Well, I won the leadership I won the leadership convention." But I mean, how do you win the leadership convention when you're not competing against anybody?
Well, there was no vote though. Like nobody voted for him.
Nobody voted for him. He just there was no competition. Like it was only it was only him. It was only him. So it was almost like as useless as like I said, graduating from kindergarten or a participation badge. Is like, because you participated in the leadership convention, EB, we're going to just give you a free pass and here you go. Here's the premiership. Here's the leadership. Do you want to go to the other leaders now?
Sure.
The other speeches. I have one queued up. I think. I might have to edit this out. Just give me a second. We're going to see if we can go to screen share here. Oh, here we go. So he's already queued up, which is great. So let me. I wasn't quite sure if it was going to queue up the right window, and it did.
Hey.
So that's good. So let's go ahead and play this now. And I'm just going to play the first minute or so. Here we go. This is John Rustad, BC Conservatives.
Wow, what a night. Thank you guys for being out. How does it feel now to have Conservative Party rockin' British Columbia? It's no question this has been a historic night. This has been a night where we have seen the political landscape in British Columbia change forever. And that's all because of you, because of the work that you guys have done and your support. So I just want to start by saying thank you to everybody who's been part of this Conservative Party in British Columbia. When I was first asked to consider taking on the leadership of the Conservative Party, I did question. I said, wait a second here. This party is at 2% in the polls. It hasn't elected anybody in almost 50 years. It hasn't formed a government in almost 100 years. But I looked at it, and in particular, I started going around the province, just jumping in my car, driving around with my chief of staff, and we would go and start meeting with a few people. And we'd have a couple of people in here, maybe 4 people over there, maybe a dozen people in another community. And everywhere we went, we heard the same thing. People were hungry for common sense change in British Columbia.
I think we can stop it there. Hungry for common sense change in British Columbia. So we'll just stop it there. We are going to scrub forward to another spot here. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of... so there's... Also for him, I'm going to scrub ahead to 4 minutes. So let's do that now. So again, bear with me here. This is high tech.
They could see the damage that was being done, but I bet you this, and I'll say this right now, that if we have the unfortunate situation of David Eby being in a minority government, he will not do a single thing that he has promised. And that is something I'm almost guaranteed. And as the Conservative Party of British Columbia, if we're in that situation, we are going to make it as difficult as possible for this NDP to do any more destruction of this province.
Any more destruction of this province.
We are going to continue this fight. We are going to continue this fight over the next days, over the next weeks, over the next months. If we have that honor of forming government, I can tell you something. We still are not going to give up. We're going to fight every single day to try to make sure that we do everything we can to improve the lives of people in this province. People are counting on us. People are counting on the hope, on the opportunity, on the vision of what can be a British Columbia, a prosperous British Columbia, not one, quite frankly, that is in a welfare state that it is today. That is what we are going to continue to fight on as the Conservative Party of British Columbia, certainly now and over the years to come. And
Okay, let's just stop it there, because I think that's pretty good. It was an interesting comment about the welfare state there. So we're back to full screen here now, and and we'll follow it up with Sonia Furstenau in a bit, but we can talk about let's shift focus to Rustad now, and talk about Rustad a little bit.
Economy-wise, I mean, things are not good, right? I mean, we know that, like a government, not do the blame game of, well, who inherited, a surplus and then it went into a deficit. I think just having your services that are there. I mean, your basic standards of services, right? So, with him saying he wants to topple the government, I look at about what affects people's lives on affordability. I mean, it comes down to the housing crisis. And just your common, your goods and services that people have on a day-to-day basis. I mean, if you don't have the money, you can't put it back into the economy, right? So, hearing John Rustad saying he wants to topple the NDP at the first opportunity if they actually get minority government and then go back to the polls, I think people don't want to see that. I know I don't want to see that. I mean, first thing I heard was, really, why not work together, John? Work with the NDP, work with the Greens, work together. I think that's what people want, and I otherwise it's like first past the post system.
I'm just going to be really interested to see what the Greens do, actually, because like we said almost at the beginning of the show, is that Sonia Furstenau knows what John Horgan did back in 2017, throwing the BC Greens under the bus. She knows what Evie did about a week ago, saying, please don't vote BC Green. So she knows that, right? So you kind of have to wonder, what is the BC Green strategy going forward? Are they really going to throw support behind the BC NDP, or are they going to just go and say, you know what, I want you to struggle a little bit, and we'll only support you vote by vote? I kind of wonder, because
rather than signing a CASA agreement, you just go by just kind of see how things go, right?
You kind of wonder because I can see Sonia Furstenau go, well, you had your chances, and you kind of blew it. It's kind of like a spurned lover, right? You can only kind of do that once. You can only kind of screw up once, and then your partners are going to say, you know what, you screwed up not once but twice, and I don't want to trust you for a third time. I'm done. I can kind of see Sonia Furstenau saying that and doing that, and saying, from now on, we're going to make you struggle, and let's just go vote by vote basis, because I don't want to throw my support on you, David Eby.
Or even the Conservatives, the same thing, because in Sonia Furstenau in the BC Greens platform in British Columbia here, she was the only person for the leader for the BC Greens that actually has something in her platform about affordability for persons with disabilities. The other parties, there was nothing in there.
But let's go to Sonia now, because especially the second clip is very emotional. But we'll start with our opening here. So we'll go back to screen share, and let's see. Okay, I got her full screen, so that's good.
We're gonna play the clip of Sonia Furstenau from the BC Greens Party.
It's playing right now.
Well, it's not just my voice I lost tonight. It has been such an honor to be an MLA. It's not the outcome that we'd hoped for in Victoria Beacon Hill tonight, but I'm so proud of the campaign that we ran. We knew we were up against a steep hill. We were trying something bold and new, but the challenge was a little more than we could do. I'm so heartened by the support that we got. I'm so heartened.
Okay, that was just like the first minute.
Yeah.
And let's just scrub across. Again, I keep having to bring up, I keep losing windows here, so I just have to bear with me. But yeah, that was the first minute. And then we're going to scrub across to 3:11 here and play that. So again, like Sonia First Snow actually lost her seat. And it's unfortunate because I've said multiple times that of all the leaders, like of the three leaders, she demonstrated the most leadership qualities of everyone, and she ran the most clean campaign of everyone. But she lost her seat because she kind of miscalculated, right? She went to a different riding than she was in the past, and she kind of. It was a bad miscalculation on her part, unfortunately. So it cost her seat. But let's go to the second clip here. I'm just going to scrub ahead.
Proud of. So it does appear that the Greens are still going to play a pretty pivotal role in the BC legislature. It's a strange time in politics when, during an atmospheric river, people come out and vote for a party that's denying the reality of climate change. But hey, this is where we're at.
Okay, so that notice that she mentioned that they're going to play a pivotal role there. And let's see. I have to bring up the other window again. Yeah, I keep losing the window here. Yeah, she talked about that they're going to play a pivotal role because they do hold the kind of the balance of power with the two seats now. Even though she lost her seat, they still have two seats, and so now this is where we're going to scrub ahead to the end of her speech, or near the end of her speech, and this is where she gets really emotional, and I think it's a good clip to end on because it does show you. The emotion of politics, and like none better than this little clip here is coming up here. So we're just gonna play this.
Sure.
We were an oasis in that legislature. We always had joy. We'd come back to the little caucus room amidst all of this nonsense happening in that legislature, and we always had joy every time. Thank you for everything you've done for BC and for the Greens. Your work is going to continue. There's so much more work to do. To Adam, where are you, Adam? I can't see you. Adam. Adam, I love you so. My brother, my colleague, my friend, we've been through a lot in the last 7 years. I couldn't have done it without you. You've made me a better person. Adam and I are both going to enjoy very much spending time with our families who we miss. And I'm going to enjoy spending time with my new grandchild who is arriving in a month. And speaking of families,
okay, we can stop.
family
We can
is
stop
the
it there.
Yeah.
You can see with that clip. And let me just pull up the window again here, Brent. We're gonna switch it back, full screen again. But yeah, so that just shows you the raw emotion of. I mean, that was really like on full display there, right? She was holding back the tears, very emotional, and I mean, I watched that clip for the first time, and I was holding back to my own tears. You know, it was very, very, very raw, very real. So yeah, you really feel for her, big time. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember on the election night watching her speech and listening very carefully. Sonia Furstenau really gave a very very good campaign. I mean, she put everything into her campaign. For people who maybe they're not fans of Sonia Furstenau or David Eby or John Rustad, or any party, they didn't get out and vote at all. They'll say, well, it's all the same. I mean, regardless of their political stripes, of whoever whichever party that person wants to vote for. I mean, I think we all must agree that, I mean, giving really good speeches and putting your all into into the campaign and to what you believe in, it really shows the character of the person. And Sonia Furstenau did put her all into that campaign. You're right. I mean, it was a long shot of reaching. Sonia Furstenau running into the Victoria Beacon Hill. And I knew right from the start. I thought, well, when I heard that Sonia Furstenau was going to run in the Victoria Beacon Hill, I thought, well, that's a big chance. That's a huge chance that she's willing to take. And I thought that's pretty risky. But I thought, you know what? I mean, if that's what she wants to do, then hey, more power to her, right? Because I mean, when people probably wonder, well, why would she do that? So Elections BC changed the electoral boundary. And it's not the political parties that have any influence on that boundary. It's the Elections BC who does change those boundaries from every so often. Over so many years, they'll start changing things up. And why do they do that? I have no clue.
It might be having something to do with like population growth in areas. Probably that's why they do it. But yeah.
Most likely. And so I think Sonia Furstenau looked at a safe riding that she was running in Cowichan Valley in British Columbia, which Cowichan Valley is on Vancouver Island, just so people wonder where Cowichan Valley is. It covers a huge area. I mean, Cowichan Valley, you got Duncan, you got Shawnigan Lake, you got a whole bunch of areas. And when they changed these boundaries, I think it was saying, well, maybe it's a good idea for me now to move to where her family is. I mean, Sonia Furstenau's family is in Victoria. And so she wanted to be around her family. I mean, and I don't blame her. I mean, being around relatives or family, I mean, it's so important. I look at where people want to be in their ridings. They want to be close to family. I get it. Some people have to commute really far to come to the legislature. And when you put your name forward and to run for public office, it's a lot. It's a lot to really consider, a lot to weigh up. And by putting your name forward, regardless of what political party it is, I mean, I actually envy you for doing that, because it's a public service. You're really caring a lot about your community and for what your beliefs are. Some people may say, well, some parties maybe they're kind of over the edge or whatever. Yeah. I mean, I'm not even going to go there. I'm just giving an overview of all the positive stuff. There's a lot of negative stuff out there for sure, right? But our show, we try to stay on all the positive stuff of bringing all the inequalities, just in general stuff that people want to hear. Like they want to hear, well, how does things change or affect people's lives? And when it comes down to a political decision, so with this election, it's going to be a political decision. Yeah. It will affect people's lives, especially if you're a person with disabilities. And I looked at the platforms very carefully, like who is running with what.
Yeah, and the BC Greens were the only one that had anything disability in their platform. Let's be honest. But I did want to. I do want to try, if we can, to keep this a short podcast. And I think we're already at about the 50-minute mark.
Okay.
But before we end, I did want to quickly touch on kind of the mistakes that were made on this election, because actually everybody made mistakes. And let's actually start with Sonia First Snow, because we were just talking about her. So let's start with her and say, like, she really, like we said, she ran a great campaign. She was by far a clean campaign. There was no smearing. Very, very clean, classy campaign. Where she did show the best leadership qualities of everyone. She was the best performer in both of the debates. That was the one on radio and the one on TV. She handedly won both of those. It was not even close. She handedly won both of those, and it's because that she is a strong leader. So that's everything she did. She did right. But now let's talk about the things that she did wrong. And one of those things, like we said, she picked the wrong writing. She picked a different writing.
Yeah.
But you can understand why, though, like we just said, because she wants to be close to family. But the other big thing she did wrong was, the BC Greens did not run a full slate of candidates. They did not have candidates. It was in 25 ridings.
Yeah.
There was no Green candidate.
Very unfortunate.
And how can you be considered a legitimate party? How can you be considered a legitimate party when you can't run a full slate of candidates? And that's really unfortunate, because if they had run a full slate of candidates, there would have been a few situations where they would have siphoned off a few votes from the BC NDP. And then the BC NDP would be even sweating even more, and it would have been a fair. As much as we can complain about first past the post,
right.
if you actually had all the candidates installed in every riding equally, it would have been a lot fairer, and there would have been some vote splitting, and that, in a sense, that's the system we have. So in that sense, it would have been fair, though, because you had the equal distribution of candidates across all of the ridings, right? And so with the vote splitting, probably the NDP might have lost more easily. Who knows? But I'm just hypothesizing, But I'm just saying the fact that the BC Greens did not run a full slate of candidates, is a big kind of black mark on the party, and that's too bad. That's too bad. So that for me is the one critical error of the BC Greens.
They campaigned really hard, like door knocking. I heard they had went around the community and really listened to people's concerns. Affordability was number one, from what I was hearing. Cost of living, like housing, just general, inflation costs have really driven up the price of everything.
Let's get back to, we were talking about mistakes. We're talking about mistakes to finish off the podcast. We talked about Sonia First Snow's mistakes. Let's now turn to Rustad's mistakes, John Rustad, and the mistakes that he made. Let's get your comments on that. What mistakes did he make?
Well, first of all, I think John Rustad, he didn't listen to what people's concerns about affordability at the door. I had somebody come by, and I live in an apartment building, but so they can't actually come in unless they're actually welcomed in. I mean, they're allowed to come in. I mean, under democracy, they're allowed to come in. If they're invited in, they come into a buildings. I did have a couple of discussions with a couple of the campaigners that were actually out there. And I talked about affordability. I asked, well, is there anything in the campaign about people with disabilities? Not that I know of, really. Am I not a resident any longer? She's like, I'm not. Well, I mean, obviously you are. I go, evidently I'm not, because if there's nothing in a platform to help people, then I'm not a resident.
Yeah.
Just, well, I'll have to talk to the campaign manager. No, I want you to talk to John Rustad. I want to hear it from him. What are you going to do? Because, like I think that's a failure right there. Like people are struggling, and I mean, come on, to everybody, they just don't kid ourselves here. Like they all said about affordability. They all acknowledged, all the leaders acknowledged people are struggling. They need help now. That's what David Eby said.
Yeah.
They need help now. Well, okay, well, that's another topic in itself. But getting back to John Rustad, he acknowledged too, people are struggling. Like, I mean, but then he blames David Eby for that.
Yeah.
John, I want to hear what you're going to do. Yeah, I mean, you can blame David Eby, right? Yeah. But you didn't put nothing in your platform, though, and that's where I think you failed. I think you knew that Sonia Furstenau at least had that in her platform of $2,400 up to. Okay, at least David Eby had something in there, but that's for next year's reach, right? That's
the biggest difference, right? Is that everybody did talk about affordability. I mean, let's get that straight. I mean, everybody did, but there is a difference between affordability and poverty. There's a huge difference between affordability and poverty, and really nobody talked about poverty except for BC Greens and Sonia Furstenau. Nobody else talked about poverty except for Sonia Furstenau, and that was a big misstep from both BC NDP and the BC Conservatives.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly, and poverty affects everybody in life. Some people may look at poverty, it's a personal choice of how to end poverty. Is it government inflicted poverty? Is it poverty where a person has now, they've lost their jobs because of no fault of their own? Maybe it's physical, or I mean, who knows? I mean, you could be walking across the crosswalk and somebody's drinking and driving, and they drive right through a red light because they thought it was green, and they keep going, right? Their mind's not set where they are, or they're distracted driving, and somebody can then be injured to a point where now they're disabled. They could be skating, they could be ice skating, professional ice skater. They could get into an accident on the ice and become permanently disabled. I know I had a neighbor of mine who that happened to. And then became, permanently on government assistance. Of course, it used to be pensions, but then government took it away back in the early 1990s. But that could be fixed going forward for sure. It's just government will to do that.
You know what I wanted to do? We're gonna talk about David Eby's mistakes. Right now, but
sure.
I wanted
to segue right into that.
Yeah, because I wanted to screen share now. I think if I screen share now, I've got the map up. Let's see. Do I have the map? Oh, I do not have the map up. But give me 1 second.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure I pick up the map here. 1 second. Right now it's there's nothing showing, but let's see. It should be here. There we go. Okay. So right here, I've only got the one map up of the entire province, and you can't see it, Brent, unless you look over to the TV. But that map has got a lot of blue in it, a lot of blue, and it's mostly, like I said, in the upper urban, or not urban, sorry, the rural area. I can't even say rural. I think everybody knows what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, rural.
Yeah, but it, there's a lot of blue on the map of BC there, and really the only areas where BC NDP were strong is in the urban areas. And really nowhere else. So,
but even the urban areas, though, they
gave up a lot of urban areas as well. Like Surrey was huge. Surrey had a lot of changeover to Conservative. Yeah,
Langley too. They lost.
Langley went over Conservative. Abbotsford, Chilliwack. So they lost a lot of ground.
The phrase got wiped.
Yeah. So that's just a quick look at the overall map, and we'll go back to full screen here. So that is, you can see visually that shows the mistake of David Eby, and let's not forget. And again, this isn't attacking David Eby.
No.
This is just stating the facts. Is that David Eby went into the, well, let's just even back up even further. He inherited the role of premier because he had no competition. He disqualified the competition, like we said earlier. He disqualified the competition of this Angeli Appadura. So he basically had nobody to compete with, so he won by default because there was nobody else to defeat. It was him alone. So he had when John Horgan left the premiership, he had to step down because of health reasons. When he left the province with, it was a $6 billion surplus. $6 billion surplus, and in 2 short years, a little bit less than 2 short years, so under 2 years, EB has ballooned up the deficit to it's $9 billion now. So he's basically blown through, in under 2 years, he's blown through $15 billion.
Oh,
$15 billion in under 2 years. Now, how incompetent do you have to be? And again, this is not an attack on David Eby. I'm just stating the facts. But how incompetent do you have to be to blow through $15 billion in under 2 years? And let's remind people, this is without any raises to the PWD.
Yeah, except last year, $125, but it only went to some PWD, not all.
Right.
That was 2023, but this year...
So they kind of went halvesies on it, yeah.
Yeah, but this year, the cost of living is way up there, right? Mm-hmm. And the highest rent increase that we've had since, oh my gosh, go probably 2019, 18, 19, I don't know, like the rates were higher, but now we got cost of living, everyone can agree. I mean, I see so many people on social media, Neil, asking for help, like food bank. Food banks are closing, like leaving people behind. They don't have enough on their shelves to help people. You go to the grocery stores. I see them at the grocery stores, people putting stuff back on the shelf from their buggy, back on the shelf saying, I can't afford that. Yeah. And just in the streets, I mean, you see around, people are being very choosy of what they're buying. They're buying no-name products because they can't afford the actual brand name products. Looking at deals like 2-for-1 deals, if you're lucky, you can even find those anymore. But or a certain percentage off. Or they cut back on meals because the cost of living's high, but the government chose not to. And I use that word very, very carefully. They chose not to increase the rates this year.
Purposeful. Yeah.
Purposely. Yeah. And
accidentally on purpose, like we always say, accidentally on purpose. Yeah. So let's again focus on the mistakes that EB made, and we already showed the map that's all blue, and so he entered the election with this huge war chest, and he spent every cent of it on all these campaigns and on all this campaign, and it was a very personal smear campaign. Let's say that too. It was a very purposeful, attack-oriented smear campaign. He didn't run on his record. He ran on trying to smear, John Rustad. That's what it was, and and that's what I didn't like, and I don't like the leadership that EB shows. I mean, that's my personal opinion, but I just do not like the leadership that EB shows. If I'm not saying that Rustad's a great leader either, but I mean, if you just look at the way EB carried himself during the debates, and more so on the TV debate, he really did look like a little bit of a spoiled child there, right? I mean, if he did like free frames, and he's just like sitting there like, how dare you be talking right now? Like, I should be the one that's interrupting, kind of like that. And it just kind of, it rubs me the wrong way, like he's not a very humble man. He's got to learn how to eat humble pie. And even even in his speech, which ran at the beginning of the show, I mean, you could see how defeated he was. But
I know.
he was hugely defeated. Like you could read his body language in his face and everything. But even at that, like at a very low point where he's got to admit, like, I screwed up. I mean, you didn't.
Well, he even said that in his speech, though. He, in other words, like he realized that, like, this is not the result that we were expecting, and we must do better.
But I mean,
there's that word again. Must be better.
Yeah, but even that though wasn't as much humble pie as I wanted to hear from him. You know what I mean? Yeah. He admitted it, but I wanted to hear more. I wanted to hear more of, like, man, you know what? I shouldn't have run a smear campaign. I should have ran on my own record of the things that we did and did not do. I should have done that. I should have run on my own record rather than smearing somebody. You know, that's what I want to see. I want to see more humble pie from EB. I really do. I really do.
More, on basically the accomplishments that he had came about with, and the issue is that he keeps saying, well, we must do better. The results are this way, that way, and obviously he made all the promises during the campaign, but when they were in government, why didn't they deliver on the promises? And I think that's why people then said in the electoral time, hey, we're going to take this out on the NDP. They didn't deliver.
I mean, again, like we showed the speeches at the beginning, like like we said, and if you compare EB's, and again, he was defeated, you can tell by his face and his body language and all that stuff, but if you compare what he said and how he acted versus Sonia First No, I mean, I don't expect EB to cry. I don't expect tears from David Eby.
Right.
But I mean, let's contrast. I mean, like, EB was just there, like, sort of saying the bare minimum, and Sonia on the other hand was just letting it all hang out. Like, tears were flowing, the emotions were high. It was very raw and honest, and it's like, wow, and it catches you in the feels. Like, it catches you in the feels. Like, I was tearing up. Like,
me too.
I was tearing up when like, because every word that she says, you resonate with it, right? And when David Eby says something, it doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't. Like, I don't believe the guy. I don't. And I want him to start resonating. Like, if he is going to be the one that's going to be running the province, I want him to start resonating with all the voters, and I want him to start eating humble pie every single damn day. I want him to start eating a lot of humble pie, and maybe, like, start crying a little bit on, like, if that's what it takes, cry a little bit,
Yeah.
But I mean, just contrast the two. I mean, so stark difference between what EB did and what Sonia First No did. Like, completely massive difference.
Yeah. I mean, to conclude today's podcast, as an overview, I totally echo what you're saying, Neil. Like, when it comes down to humble pie, like, I mean, David, he had so much opportunity while he was in government, in that position, to make changes, like make life more affordable. Like, during the campaign, well, we're making life more affordable. We're here to listen. Well, like, you were in government and you could have made these changes. And I keep thinking back, well, why is things so unaffordable? Why can't I find affordable housing? Why didn't I get a rate increase because I can't give it to my landlord? I was making little notes along the way, and thinking, well, like, this is not making sense. Like, why is this not happening? And you got a ministry called Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. By not giving an increase,
just get rid of the name poverty. Just get rid of the name poverty, because you're not even trying anymore.
No, it costs more to keep people in poverty than to actually, like, solve it. So that's another show in itself. But yeah, I mean, I think opportunity was there as a takeaway from it all. I think the NDP failed on that opportunity of making life more affordable. They made great promises, and yes, I mean, absolutely.
And he lost 9 seats.
He lost 9 seats because of
and so that should be humble pie for him right there.
Again, people around me, I have other relatives, and I'm just not going to say who they voted for, but they didn't vote for the NDP.
Yeah.
They wanted to. And I had other people in my community who wanted to vote for the NDP. They didn't.
Yeah.
I have other friends that live out in different areas. They wanted to vote for the NDP. They didn't.
Yeah.
I
wanted to vote Green, and I couldn't because I had nobody Green in my
no
riding.
candidate there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it goes to show, there needs to be, there's mistakes that were made along the way.
Yeah.
Why are these people not wanting to vote for NDP? Why couldn't they vote for the Green?
Yeah.
They didn't want to vote for the Conservatives, so some people, they didn't vote at all. One of my neighbors said, no, I'm not voting at all, because all they do is they say one thing and they get into power and they don't do nothing, and it makes things even more unaffordable.
It was still only 57% turnout, which sounds like a lot, but
Go down.
You're still like almost half didn't.
Yeah.
We're talking about registered voters too. We're talking about registered voters. Over half of, a little bit under half of registered voters did not vote, and that is kind of sad.
It is
kind of sad.
And imagine if all of it were, maybe not all, but the majority, even higher, much, much higher percentage. Imagine 80% of people that are registered voters voted.
It should be at least that, right? It should be at least
80
that.
or between 80 and 90, I'd say.
Yeah, it should be at least that.
They all got out there. The whole changeover of how the political platforms or the whole layout of how the electoral reform would look in our province. The NDP lost 9 seats. Langley, we were out there.
And we have to close off the show saying they're still recounting. So they still could technically lose maybe one more seat, depending on the final count.
There's 2 seats out there.
Yeah, 2 seats that are screwing things up right now. They still have to do recounts for 2 seats.
So we're going to have to find out by the 26th at the earliest, the 28th at the latest. And we'll find out the fate what's going to happen. Is it going to be a minority government with the Greens, or the minority government with the Greens with the Conservatives, or are they just going to leave it out there in the wilderness and say, you know what, both parties, you figure it out.
Right now, the seat count the way it is, it's 46 for BC NDP, 45 for the BC Conservatives, and 2 for the Green. Yeah,
and there's one thing to really note too on that is people think, okay, so they got 46 seats for the NDP, and they think, oh, okay, one more seat, they're going to get 47. Right? Okay, but here's the tricky part. People
one
that
for the speaker.
Familiar. One for the speaker.
Yeah.
So you take one away from 47 down to 46. So now they don't have.
Now you have a tie again.
Party government.
Yeah.
They're actually technically they can't form government unless they actually are dependent on the Greens to support them to bring them up to minority. Yeah. Again, unless the NDP can win 2 seats, they'll push them to 48. One for the speaker, push them to 47. Now they're razor thin. Razor thin. Yeah. And that's without the Greens.
Nobody can be sick. Nobody can be sick.
You've got to show up at all times.
Yeah.
You got to be there to vote.
Yeah.
You can use Zoom. They do have that option or Zoom or Skype or whatever platform you use. Mm-hmm. You can call in and you can vote. But what happens if we have a major storm and knocks out the power? You're not going to be able to vote.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Ooh. And now. But here's the other thing just to end today's podcast. So when the government does eventually, however it happens, they're going to go back in February. Okay. So when they go back into the BC legislature, they're going to test the competence of the House. Mm-hmm. So David Eby, right now, as it stands right now, as of today's the 22nd of October, David Eby is still the premier right now. Everything's kind of, it's kind of in the holding pattern. So he goes back in, he'll have his caucus, he'll go in and they'll test the competence of the House. If the voting comes down, so I guess the first competence, from my understanding, is when the BC budget comes out, and that's usually in February. So when that budget comes out, they're going to test the competence in the House. So if that is basically, if they say, well, they vote on it and say, no, you don't have competence in the House, that could trigger an election.
Another election.
Or here's the other part. is that when they do a throne speech, when they come back in, they usually the traditional methods when they come into before they come back into the next session, they have the lieutenant governor comes in, gives a throne speech. Now they have to now test that to competence. So if that goes down, they can now be forced into election.
Yeah.
So now David Eby would now have to go to the lieutenant governor and say, this is what's happening. The lieutenant governor now can make that determination saying, okay, I'm going to now ask the other party if they would like to form government.
Right.
Okay. Or the lieutenant governor says, you know what, we're going to call a provincial election because the other government, okay, so still don't have enough seats unless the Greens can go to them.
Yeah.
But they're at 45 seats. So even if the two Greens went over there and said, okay, here's 45 plus 2, it's 47. They still need a speaker.
They still need the speaker.
So they're going to go down to 46.
Yeah.
So they still can't form the government.
It's still a tie, yeah.
See how this works? That's how tricky this is.
It's just crazy. It's crazy.
That's why it's going to be so interesting going forward.
Yeah.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. This has been a real splashy kind of a segment. It was kind of the breakdown of the aftermath of the BC election. A little bit of ranting, raving, but nothing much. This is just kind of our observation.
Yeah.
When I mentioned about PWD, persons with disabilities in BC, again, it's that theme that's out there of saying, well, we're going to take care of you, but one party says, maybe next year. The other one, Green Party, says, well, yeah, we're going to commit to up to $2,400. That's going to be, well, obviously it's going to be next year because, I mean, we're already in October now. So maybe that's in the BC budget. If the BC Greens can, just to conclude today's segment, if the BC Greens can somehow work with whatever party it is, maybe they can force the Conservatives. Imagine that, Neil.
Yeah.
BC Greens force the Conservatives, and the BC Conservatives will be kicking and screaming and biting and hollering and scratching.
Right.
I mean, and screaming at like little children in the corner. No, Sonia, don't.
It'll be really interesting to see what happens.
It'd be like Sonia be telling the two new candidates, force them to do this. And now, no, Sonia, please don't make us help the PWD out in BC. We don't like disabled people. Well, but then the NDP will say, come on, Sonia, we got more work to do. I mean, I know. And you're going to do this because you're going to raise the rates up to $2,400.
Yeah.
Don't make them wait. Don't make PWD wait for that CDB, the Canada Disability Benefit. Come on, David. They've been waiting for 4.5 years.
But like we said off air, though, I mean, the parties are going to do what they're going to do, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you and I say. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter what you and I say.
Yeah.
We can say raise the rates, but the parties are going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And
this is all hypothetically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The scenario point, and then is I try to make it into not into like a comical one, but as a scenario where people listening to it going, what? So what? And make people wait until the Canada Disability Benefit for 4.5 years, and I mean, when people say, well, that doesn't even make sense. It's still, to me, it still doesn't even make sense. But
the reason why, and this will be my quick closing comment. The reason why the other party should care about helping people with disabilities is because it's like people with disabilities account for 50% of the people in poverty, right?
Oh, it's huge.
And the fact of the matter is that poverty does impact not only us, people with disabilities, but it affects the entire society. I mean, we talk about all the store closures because of the increase in crime, right? We talk about all the tent cities and all of the crime related to that. I mean, off the top of the show, I made a quip about the NDP now being called the Needles, Drugs, and Poverty Party, and that's kind of, you can say, well, that's not nice to say that, but I mean, I'm just saying what's being put out there on social media, but it goes to show how different it is in 7 short years from 2017 to now, how much more drugs and needles and poverty there is compared to 2017. I'm not saying that 2017 there still wasn't, poverty. But
yeah.
you compare
It's escalated a lot
7
more.
years ago to now, it's massive difference. So,
I've seen a huge
so
change.
it should be a huge deal to all parties, not just the Greens.
Right.
I'm happy for breakdown.
Okay.
Okay, go on.
But thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Stay tuned to our next podcast. Please subscribe, like, and share, and stay up to date on our podcast. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in today. Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone. Okay, bye.